Hello, this is Pastor Matthew Woods, pastor Grace Lutheran Church in New Albany, Indiana, and this is the daily update for Monday, May 4th, 2020. Driven to the Lord through brokenness. Well, as I sit in my truck today, I can tell you that I have made mistakes. Have you ever made a mistake that cost you a lot? I know I sure have. Recently, I had the privilege of having to fix my truck. For those of you who don't know me very well, I have an old pickup truck that is almost 20 years old. It takes a beating and keeps on going, right? When I need mulch or dirt, or I need to haul something, it's the kind of truck I just jump in and go. It's just a little bit of rust on the side, you might say. It's got a lot of scratches and a lot of character. But it also means that I don't have to worry about how it looks and what I throw into it or what I'm hauling. Just this week, I've had the privilege of hauling a great big stump from church. Pretty cool, right? It's got about 215,000 miles on it so far, and it's still chugging along, thankfully. However, as it gets older, it tends to need a little TLC once in a while. It needs a little more attention and breaks down a little bit. Recently, I had to replace my power steering pump, so I did what I thought was good to save a little money. I bought the power steering pump, got on YouTube and learned how, and figured, hey, I can do this. So I pulled Old Faithful up into the garage, I jacked it up, and I went to work. I even rented a special tool called a puller kit. The pulley is the wheel attached to the power steering pump that the belt attaches to and turns the thing, and of course it makes the power steering work. Well, so the idea, of course, is to fix it so you can just turn the wheel with one finger. That's what's nice about it. It makes it easy that way. Well, mine wasn't working, and so it was time to be replaced, and I got all the pieces and got to work, and I went after it. After I removed the old pump, I simply reversed the process that I used to take it apart, to put it all back together again. I put the pulley back on, went great. Put the new pressure line on, super duper. Put the pump on the truck, tight squeeze, not a lot of room to work, got it done. Check. Hook up the main line that feeds the fluid from the reservoir that flows down into the pump. Got it all together. Started my engine to test it to see if it worked. Thinking everything was going well. It all went together well, but something wasn't right. Something didn't go together correctly. Well, I made a couple calls, spent a few days trying to sort it out. And finally I just surrendered. I had to take the truck in to have a look. Something wasn't right. Well, you know what we found, or what he found? He discovered that after 2 hours of tearing it down and looking at it, and looking it over, he found that I had forgotten one crucial thing. You know that hose that feeds the pump from the reservoir where the fluid comes from to make the whole thing work? Well, on it, there's this little thing right here that I hold in my hand, so I dropped it. This little thing that's barely very big. Hope you can see that. That little item was on top of the place where the hose hooks onto the pump, and I forgot to take it off. Its job is to keep dirt from getting inside the pump while it's being moved around, and I forgot it. Completely forgot it. And I pushed the rubber hose right on over it and left the cap there. And you know, with this little cap on there, no fluid is going to flow. And so, with no fluid getting to the pump, therefore no fluid was getting to the steering mechanism, and nothing was working. And so what happened was after he fixed it, got it working, I discovered that this little mistake right here cost me $163. Wasn't that great? Yeah, it's called stupid tax. Yeah, I know, that's a lot. Nobody's fault but my own. At least I did most of it correct, right? Close enough, right? No, not really. The problem is it didn't work. But one of the things that it did do is it drove me to find some help. And that's the lesson for this morning. In Mark chapter 10, verses 17 through 22, Jesus has an encounter with a wealthy young man, the rich young ruler, it says. It says, a certain ruler asked him, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" As Jesus started on his way, this is what's going on. Verse 18, "Why do you call me good?" Jesus answered. "No one is good except God alone. You know the commandments. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony. You shall not defraud. Honor your father and your mother." "Teacher," he declared, "all of these I have kept since I was a boy." Jesus looked at him and loved him. "One thing you still lack," he said. "Go sell everything you have and give it to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me." And of course, the man's face fell, it says. He went away sad because he was a man of great wealth. This young ruler was a success story in the eyes of most, but still craved something he could sense that was missing in his life. Something more was nagging him, and it wasn't there. But what was it? What did he need? It drove him literally to his knees before Jesus, where Jesus reveals what's missing. And notice, he loved him, but he also told him the truth. The thing that he was missing was the first commandment, namely, an actual relationship with his God. Somehow during this man's life, he had replaced God with an idol and taken courage and confidence in that idol. It was overlooked much of his life. In fact, it was much like overlooking that little plastic cover that I forgot about, that protective cap. It was overlooked, but in his case, it was a major problem. It was a critical oversight, and it was something that he still lacked. It was just the one thing, but without it, he simply was unable to operate spiritually, unable to know God, if you will, unable to steer in the right direction. James 2:10 reminds us that whoever keeps the whole law and yet stumbles at just one point is guilty of breaking all of it. The law is more like a windshield rather than a stained glass window. A single chip spoils the whole windshield rather than simply breaking a single piece among many. So what do we gain today? What is this that we are to learn? Well, think of it this way. You see, missing that little step caused me to look closer at what I had done and what I needed. It even required a professional to look at it from an outside view. Yes, it cost me a lot, but it also taught me a lot. And in it, I gained a little more patience, a little more wisdom, and a little more humility. Humility, for sure. Most important, taking the truck in allowed me to get the problem fixed. Of course, people are much more complicated than trucks, but the principle is the same. The rich young man knew he had a problem he couldn't figure out. The one thing he lacked, maybe the one thing that he needed in order to look closer at himself, to look closer at knowing the Lord a little more fully. Some are quick to sell him short because he went away sad. Yet, notice his humility brought him to his knees before Jesus. It was so powerful, such a draw, that he would seek Jesus out to find some way to fix whatever it was that was nagging him, whatever it was that was broken. And he was, it appears, ready to deal with what it cost him. But he really didn't realize how much, at least at that point. Jesus told him to sell everything he had and give it to the poor. He went away very sad because he was very wealthy. But Jesus pointed out the one thing that was keeping his faith from working properly. And you notice, by the way, I want you to note this, is that sadness can become a powerful avenue for grace, just like anything else. A professor at one of our seminaries, Dr. Scare, once suggested that the one that is a rich young ruler, this man is none other than perhaps John Mark himself, who was once this individual. The same man who offered Jesus a place to conduct, a home large enough to conduct his Passover meal so they could have their Last Supper. If that is accurate, then he was also the author of the Gospel of Mark. But there's truly no way to know for sure. But if this is accurate, what a tremendous turn of events this may have become for this young man. What I love most about this encounter is that Jesus leaves it open-ended for this young man to discover where treasure is truly at, where it truly lies. He waits for the relationship to grow naturally. One cannot underestimate what godly sorrow can accomplish. 2 Corinthians 7, 8 through 11, in fact all of chapter 7, talks about how godly sorrow led the Corinthian Christians to repentance. A deep sorrow led to the repairs that got things working again amongst the family of believers. The broken things can become the very thing that leads to vital repairs, deeper relationships, great joy, more patience, more humility. All of those things are affected. Broken hearts or a wounded pride or a shattered spirit, those things, whatever they might be, they might bring about a deep sense of guilt and sorrow. Sometimes it's just being willing to find out what's missing, whatever it is, whatever we're missing in this situation. We have to ask, is there something that seems small and insignificant to us, something that we think is small and insignificant that needs attention, that needs to remove that rubber cap that's keeping God's grace from flowing into our life? Now, it happens all the time. People will come to Pastor Kishnik or Pastor Woods with a lack of marital peace, for example. In most cases, the thing or things that are causing all the strife are small things. Not picking up the socks, not helping enough around the house, not helping enough with the kids, not watching the budget close enough. Most of the time, it's fixable things if they're willing to change them. They come in humility, sometimes in desperation, sometimes it's a mixture of both. But I'm glad that they come. Likewise, Jesus loved this rich young ruler, this young man. Jesus has told him some hard truth. But remember, the boy asked him plainly, what is it that I'm missing? He got his answer. And the answer is where the healing begins. The old saying is, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Because of our sinful nature, we have a lot of squeaks going on in our lives that probably need attention, spiritual ones. You know, those things that might be nagging us or troubling our spirit. But in those things, we have opportunity. Those things actually bring opportunity to look closer at what needs to be fixed. To take a hard look at those things, but also to take a closer look at Jesus and who he is. And maybe to steer us in the right direction again, perhaps closer to him. The possibility alone is worthwhile, and that's a good thing. Maybe our future, like the rich young man, is a little uncertain. Maybe it's a little open-ended, like this young man. But the grace of God that's there leaves all kinds of room for God to do great things, and that's what we count on. You just never know where God will take it. The Lord is certainly the Lord of great things. He's certainly the Lord of resurrections. He's the one that brings about the thing that people least expect, but also bring the greatest prize. If what we endure leads us closer to Jesus, that reality, that treasured blessing will be worth every penny. And now the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with his favor and forever and always give you his peace. I'm Pastor Woods. Thanks for joining us.